Previously, I made a video reviewing quite a number of 35mm primes available in the market. Ever since then, there are a few more options in the market, and that's what led to part 2 of this showdown. I will be testing out the new lenses to see how they perform and compare them to the other lenses in my previous video. If you're new to this channel, do consider subscribing for more of such content. Hey guys, what's up? My name is Bernard and welcome to the channel. For today's video, I'll be reviewing some of Sigma's relatively new lens offering for the Sony E-mount system, the 35f2 and the 35 f1.4. You will also be seeing some shots from the Sigma 35 f1.2. If you watched my previous video, you would know that I've already reviewed this lens. The reason I'm including this lens again in this video is to use it as a touchstone because it was compared to the other lenses previously, and you can use it as a gauge to compare the new lenses to the older ones. I would like to give a shout out to Sigma Singapore for loaning me these lenses so I could make this review. However, I would like to point out that this is not a sponsored video and my thoughts are not influenced in any way. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's take a look at the lenses. The first thing I want to look at is its image quality, and since the focal length 35mm is usually associated with environmental portraits, that's what will be the theme of this shoot. I will begin by showing you the images captured at each lens widest aperture. These images are captured with the A7R III, which has 42 megapixels. I am starting with wide shots first before proceeding to shoot closer in the following examples. Next, I place the images side by side so you could compare them more accurately. Even without cropping in, you can see the background melting away much more significantly with the f1.2. Cropping in at each lens widest aperture, I would say that the f1.2 and the f1.4 lens are equally sharp and the f2 lens falls behind slightly. To be honest, the difference is negligible and I could barely tell the difference even after cropping in so heavily. Before I move on to the next example, I will show you the same images shot with the constant aperture of f2.8 across all the lenses. This time, all images look equally sharp to me. For the second example, we have a medium wide shot. I would like to point out that all images in this video were only lightly color corrected. No color grading, denoising, sharpening, or cropping were done in Lightroom. Side by side, in terms of sharpness, I can't tell a difference. Cropping in, all lenses are equally sharp to me. And here are the images shot at the same aperture. All three lenses produce very sharp images in my opinion. For the third example, we have a cowboy shot. Once again, side by side, in terms of sharpness, I can't see any difference, but I can definitely see the advantage of shooting at f1.2 or f1.4. Do you guys see a difference? Do let me know in the comment sections down below. I would love to know your thoughts. As usual, showing you guys the images shot at the same aperture. For the fourth example, we have a medium shot. I must say that I really love how the background melts away with these lenses. In this example, wide open, the f2 lens doesn't seem as sharp as the other two. However, at f2.8, the 1.2 lens seems to be the least sharp of the three. For the fifth and final example, we have a medium close-up. Just for your information, everything was shot without a lens hood. As you guys can see, there was some flaring at f1.2. This flaring was less obvious when I stopped down. Side by side, the images look very similar to me except the flares on the f1.2 lens. Cropping in, I think that the f2 is ever so slightly softer than the other two lenses. At the same aperture, the f1.2 looks the sharpest and the f2 looks the softest. To conclude this round of tests, after hours of straining my eyes in front of the computer, in my opinion, the 35 f1.2 and the f1.4 are equally sharp lenses, and the 35 f2 falls behind slightly. For the next test, I want to look at the close focusing capabilities of each lens. In my previous video, I shared how the Sony 35G Master and the Sony 35 f1.8 had an impressive close focusing distance of 0.25 meters and 0.22 meters respectively. This allows you to get shots with unique perspectives. Unfortunately, although the Sigma has a decent minimum focusing distance of 27 cm for the 35 f2, and 30cm for the 35 f1.4, it is not as impressive as the Sony native lenses. However, in my testing, it did seem like I could get a little closer with the 35 f1.4 compared to the 35 f2. For the last set of images, we will now look at how each lens renders the bokeh balls. At the widest aperture, I think that all lens renders beautiful bokeh. Now, let's take a look at the images when all lenses are stopped down to f2. This time, I personally like the bokeh from the f1.4 lens the most, followed by the f1.2 and the f2 the last. We are done testing the photography capabilities of these lenses, so now let's take a look at the videography aspect. Arguably, two of the most important things will be focus tracking capabilities and focus breathing issues. In the first example, my autofocus area is set to flexible spot small, and I'll point the camera to whatever I want it to focus on. To keep it fair, I made sure that the aperture of all lenses are set to f2. From what I can see, both lenses have a little focus breathing and both struggle a little when it comes to trying to focus on objects closer to the lens. For the second test, my autofocus area is set to wide and I want to see how the lens performs when I try to track a subject that walks into frame. This time, I think both lenses perform decently at shifting focus and tracking. Now that I'm done with all the tests I have for these three lenses, let's play a little game. I will be showing you images I captured with these lenses, and you can see if you're able to tell which is shot by what. I will display the image for about 3 seconds before I reveal the answer. Pause the video if you require more time to guess. So how did you guys do on that test? Did you guys manage to figure out which image was shot by which lens? I think this little game has established something. No matter which lens you pick, you're definitely going to get good images out of it. Before I give my recommendation of which lens to buy, I want to go over some specifications of each lens as it will affect your decision. The Sigma 35 f2 is relatively small at 70 by 67.4 mm and weighs 325 grams. Since it competes with the 35 f1.8 directly, here are its specifications. They are pretty similar in terms of size, but the Sony native lens is slightly lighter. Honestly, the difference is negligible and it is not going to affect my purchasing decision. The price of the Sigma lens is something that came as a surprise to me. It is priced at $938, while the Sony lens you can get for $999. Sigma products are usually an incredible value for money and much more affordable than the Sony native lenses, but this is an exception. I'm not saying that the 35 f2 is not worth the money, I'm just saying it's slightly different from how they usually position their products. But after my experience with the 35 f2, I can understand why it was priced this way. On top of its superior performance in terms of image quality, this lens has a very solid build. If you hold it in your hands, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. It feels like a tank and it's worth the extra cost. Let's now look at the Sigma 35 f1.4. It is 75.5 by 111.5 mm and weighs 640 grams. The Sony G Master, its direct competitor, weighs only 524 grams and is 76.96 mm. I think that the lightweight and compact design of the Sony 35mm G Master is an engineering marvel. But that is also one of the reasons why you're paying a premium for it at $2,099. The Sigma lens is priced at $1,288, which is much more affordable and a great value for money. It is now time for me to give my recommendation. After my experience with all the lenses, my choice of lens will differ based on my needs and priorities. If I was a photographer who wants the best image quality, a light and compact lens, and budget is not a concern, I would go for the Sony G Master. However, if I'm primarily a videographer, I wouldn't go for this lens because the focus grading is quite apparent. If I was a hybrid shooter who wants a fast lens with great image quality, good autofocus in photo mode, decent autofocus in video mode, and a great value for money lens, the Sigma 35 f1.4 is my top choice. In fact, among all the 35mm I have tested so far, I would say that this lens is my favourite and the most well balanced. On the other hand, if I was someone that wanted a lens that doesn't break the bank and is as compact and lightweight as possible, I would have to consider the 35 f2 or the 35 f1.8. If I was a videographer, I would say that the Sony 35 f1.8 is my top choice as it shifts focus very smoothly. However, I wouldn't recommend it for photographers that love to pixel peep because although the image quality is decent, it is not as sharp compared to the other lenses. The Sigma 35 f2 is much more suitable for hybrid shooters. It has great image quality and decent autofocus performance in video mode. The only downside to me is that the lens is a f2 instead of f1.8, but this is not a deal breaker. That sums up my recommendation on which lens is best based on your needs. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did. That's it for today. It's a wrap!